Just interestingly there, Barry, we were just talking about sports in general and how an athlete's performance could be affected by microwaves intentionally or unintentionally. Have you got any experience with that?
Yes, absolutely. I know of people who have devices, and it is not uncommon after a main sporting event where somebody has acted out of character, or they've just suddenly not, they've stopped performing their best momentarily. For instance, like a 100-yard sprint or something, um, or boxing or whatever. Excuse me. And for instance, it is known that if you send a microwave beam, have you lost something?
I've just lost my notepad, that's all, Barry.
No, I haven't got it.
No, I've put it somewhere. My bad. I'll grab this. Sorry, carry on, Barry.
That's right. I'll start again. It's known, if you send a microwave beam to anybody, whatever the pulse frequency or modulation frequency, you can affect any part, any cell of that body. Now, for instance, and I have had calls after the Olympics on this, saying, is there a frequency that does this? If you have somebody, for instance, doing the 100 meters, there is a frequency, and I won't say what it is on camera. I'll tell you off camera, but I won't say what it is on camera because, I mean, any school child will be clever enough to do this. There is a frequency that will make you think you have diarrhea and your bowel is about to collapse. Now, if you're running in a race and you think, hang on, I'm about to have diarrhea, it's just enough. I mean, it'll only be a second that slows you down and stops your concentration. But that's enough.
At that elite level, that's all.
That's enough for you to come third and not first. If you're boxing, it's enough for you just to momentarily, half a second, for somebody to square up and get you straight in the jaw. And there are frequencies that will interfere with the heart rhythm, which interferes with breathing, interfere with the lungs, the thinking processes of the brain, collapse the bowel. You can do them all.
So any elite sport where there's a lot of money involved?
Oh, if there's a lot of money involved, yeah. And I mean, it could be somebody just sitting in the audience with a simple camera where you think there's a straightforward mobile camera, and they are just beaming out this specific pulse frequency.
Oh, that's incredible.
You know,
and frightening as well, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
If those
Well, it has been used for warfare. It's documented. We have used frequencies on the Catholics in Northern Ireland to make them ill. The Americans used pulse frequencies on the women protesters at Greenham Common who are protesting against the American base in the UK having nuclear missiles. They have been used, and the last case I think was only last year, where a particular embassy said all of our staff have suddenly gone sick, and they found that the staff in the embassy were being microwaved. I mean, it is done, and I get calls after each Olympics or a really big sporting event. I can get a call saying, can this be done? And I'd say, well, yes, I could do it, and so could any 12-year-old who's capable with a computer and just making a little microwave beam and something that will oscillate at the correct speed to produce the pulses. I mean, wow. A 12-year-old could do it.
Sorry, so just to take you back to the schools, Barry,
right.
Where we are in the schools at the moment, I visited a load of schools in South Wales looking for a suitable primary school with no Wi-Fi. It's nigh on impossible now. that the governments have given out grants to put wireless access points in every single classroom, the same height as a light above the children's heads. So you're looking at 2 meters above a child's head, typically in the center of a classroom. These units are industrial scale units. They emit 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, many of them capable of beamforming, which could obviously cause hotspots in the classroom. Nobody has any idea of the radiation levels in the classroom or the dangers caused. What would you expect to see in a classroom full of children? What would be the time frame and the symptoms you'd expect to see children suffering ill health from these transmitters?
Almost immediately, I would expect to see changes in behaviour. I will guarantee, go to any school, I will guarantee there will be changes in behaviour. There will be a change in learning behaviour. There will be a change in, for the worse, in classroom behaviour, in other words, becoming more naughty. The children will sleep less when they get home, because when you leave the classroom, the postman's going to drop something through the door in a minute. When you leave the classroom, the microwaves, when you leave the classroom, the microwaves, the entrainment in the brain does not switch off. It has been proven and published in the Lancet that that 2 minutes on a cell phone will entrain a child's brain for 2 hours after. So if you have a child in a playground with a cell phone, their brain will not be normal and will not work normal for 2 hours. It's not a linear scale where if they're on for 3 minutes, it's 3 hours, 4 minutes, 4 hours. But now you are microwaving children's brains, and the fact whether the range of microwaves will be all around the school, whether you've got it in the classroom or not. They are being microwaved all day. They will not recover if they have no microwaves at home. They will still not recover by the time they come back to school. The BBC, who are responsible for putting microwave, they are part of the companies putting all this out. The BBC carried out a panorama experiment where they had Wi-Fi in school, and they found that the changes and the mental aptitude, the mental capacity of the children was changed. And you're doing this. So what you will have in these schools is you will have children who are not behaving normal, and they will not behave normal because their brains will not be normal. Their organs will not function normally. Their immune system, which isn't up and running till they're 18, their immune system will be substandard. The thymus that they rely on to help build their immune system will be substandard. You will have more epileptic fits. You will have children complaining of nosebleeds, feeling faint. You will have heart palpitations. In fact, in some of the schools now, and I think it's Canada, they've actually put defibrillating machines in the classrooms because in case the children, some have had heart attacks.
that was an investigative journalist, I believe by the name of Rodney Palmer, that found that the Wi-Fi was incredibly high in the school.
Yeah, and they will suffer illness, but they will have personality changes, and I'll run through just the 5 main ones. And this is known throughout the world. And there are countries where they're actually running clinics for children after taking them away from the microwaves. You will get the same symptoms, and this is standard around the world. You will get the same symptoms as if they were on morphine, marijuana, hunger, and I'm not talking time for a sandwich hunger. I'm talking we are going to eat now, and if there isn't any food, we're going to steal it type hunger. Hopelessness where you start to give up and you become depressed, you start to give up, and in children specifically that manifests itself as suicidal tendencies because they are not in control of their hormones. And in fact there are 48 studies on children, separate studies on children and suicidal behaviour. And you will get, the last one, aggression. Now, if the pulse frequency is a specific pulse frequency, that will manifest itself in adolescent boys or boys reaching puberty as sexual aggression and sexual misbehaviour and sexual deviant thoughts, but aggression. And there are 2 papers which are published, and I've got them here. There are 2 papers published. They're published in Scientific American Mind, which is a world-leading psychiatric magazine of girls. It's not specifically girls, but these 2. One was where a girl became addicted because you have a chemical addiction to microwaves, like morphine, marijuana. You have a chemical addiction. A girl was addicted to microwaves, and the parents wanted to limit her exposure to Wi-Fi. And she said, if you do this, and she meant it, the girl, it's only a young girl, schoolgirl, she said, if you do this, I will kill both of you in your sleep. And she meant it. And they took her to a psychiatrist. And another parent that threatened a mother who said to her girl, this is having a bad effect on you, I'm going to step in and control this. The girl punched the mother in the face and said, don't you ever approach me like that again. And this is what we're getting with the children.
But in Psychology Today, a few years ago, they did publish an article where they said that children are developing grey matter in their brains from smartphone addiction. Now, I think a lot of people are looking at the blue light of the screen as the addictive factor, but not many people are paying attention to the fact that it's the microwave transmitter in the phone that could be potentially causing the damage as well.
It's actually affecting the grey matter. I read a similar paper, whether it's the same one, but it's actually destroying the grey matter. They found that you can actually see a change in the structure of the brain from microwave interference in the brain. And this is when you put depending which part of the microwave band you're using, you affect every cell in the body that is moist, and that is all of them. And you, with the water molecules and the other chemical molecules and the enzymes, you are changing either the shape of the molecule, you are changing the rotation in the brain of the molecule, and you are changing the orientation of the molecule. And these are incredibly serious in developing children's brains. You are changing every single part of what the brain is trying to do to build the child normally. Putting Wi-Fi in a school is really, it's not only the most dangerous thing you can do, it is the most harmful in terms of what are they going to become.
Yes.
And I wrote a paper on this, and I've got a reference here. I don't know if you read it, but a man, with no disrespect to anyone listening here, a man who I consider alive to be the cleverest person on the planet in this area, Yuri Gregoriev. He is the chair of the Russian Federation for Nuclear and Atomic Sciences. He wrote an article. He came over here to say to us, whatever you do, do not put Wi-Fi in schools. For the simple reason that Stanford Research Institution in California, who are one of the world's, if not the world's, leading research scientific institute, like MIT and Yale and Harvard, they found that the Wi-Fi frequencies, you mentioned 2.4 and 5, but they also came out with 0.9 gigahertz as well. They found the Wi-Fi frequencies are the most dangerous to expose anybody to. Children, 20-fold more dangerous. They are the most lethal frequencies, and it's published in Jerry Flynn's book that you've got. They are the most lethal frequencies. And he came over here and he wrote an article. It's published in a science journal. I've got it here. You can download it from the internet. And he basically said, if you put Wi-Fi into a school, you can affect all of their neurological and physiological behavior for the rest of their lives, and not only them, but their children's lives, because you are damaging the mitochondrial DNA. And the mitochondrial DNA is irreparable, specifically in girls when they reproduce. The mitochondrial DNA is irreparable. So if you have mitochondrial DNA which is irreparable, that is passed from mother to daughter to daughter to daughter. And what you are doing in your Welsh primary schools or secondary schools, you are, every second of every day, you are damaging the ovarian follicles that are in the ovaries of the girls. Now, every girl in every class in Wales, every girl, in her ovarian follicles, she has tens of thousands of ovarian follicles in the ovaries. They, when she starts puberty, will start to descend and she can become pregnant. But as they're sitting in the ovaries now, they are being irradiated. They do not have the immune system that the rest of the body has. And the microwaves going right through the body are not specific. They will go through every ovarian follicle, every ovary, and change the electrical conductivity and everything else they can change in there every second of every day of school life. And when the girl, and I've written a paper on this and it's on, you've got it on there, when the girl decides to have a child, what you can have is a damaged ovarian follicle that may be discarded, in which case you have a miscarriage or a stillbirth or a genetically damaged child. And according to the World Health Organization, the European Academy for Environmental Medicine, they will have, every girl in Wales now has between a 47.7% and 67.7% chance of one of those happening. Every girl. Now, look at that mathematically. Let's just take the middle figure, 50%. All your schoolgirls now, they have a 50% chance of not having a healthy child. Now, if you do nothing, in one generation, you have lost a half of your children. The next generation, you're down to a quarter. The next generation, you're down to 1/8. Now, what I'm saying to answer your question, sir, is if you do nothing, if those people, the decision makers, do nothing, and they are named, and this will come out in history in the end, in 60 years, 3 generations, only 1 in 8 of your Welsh children, 1 in 8 will be born healthy. And that is a fact. The World Health Organization has published it. The European Academy for Environmental Medicine has published it. 60,000 pediatricians have tried to stop it. The European Council, representing 800 million people, 47 countries, said ban Wi-Fi from schools. It isn't me, a stupid old man sitting here saying it. It is the cleverest people and the biggest bodies in the world saying ban Wi-Fi in schools. And if you don't, only 1 in 8 of your children will be born healthy in 60 years. That is fact.
And because some countries have already decided to take progressive steps to remove it from the schools. I think France is one of them.
58% of the world. It's what I do. I talk to governments, royalty, leaders of peoples. It's what I do. And I say one thing to them, and if anyone in Wales watching this can show this to a decision maker, I say to them, and this pricks their ears up, I say, look, in 60 years, if you do nothing, and the harm is being done now, because this is going to be regenerative, hereditary, and it's going to be difficult to stop because you're affecting the mitochondrial DNA. I say to the leaders of peoples, I say, look, tell me in 60 years' time, if you do nothing, and it could already, the seed could already be, the damage could already be done, in 60 years, only 1 in 8 of your children can be born healthy. Who is going to pay the health bill for your country? It is going to be phenomenal. Where are you going to get the labour force to run the infrastructure and pay the taxes of your country? You are going to be in the same position we were in at the end of the Second World War, We had nobody to run the buses, nobody to run the factories, nobody to earn money to pay taxes, nobody to rebuild. The only thing we could do was have mass immigration. And the only thing you will be able to do in Wales, and some people may say politically that's a brilliant thing because there are too many people and they're looking for somewhere, but the only thing you can do in Wales is have mass immigration. That is the only way as a country you will survive.
And even as insurance companies, Barry, they've already decided they're starting to exclude radio waves from their policies because they have looked at the evidence of harm that you've looked at and said this is not worth insuring anymore.
Can I read something to you?
Yeah.
Let me read this. This is from Jerry Flynn's book, Hidden Dangers, which you can get now off Amazon. He's a captain, was a captain in the intelligence services. And if I go to here, let me just read this. February 2015, and there's a website where you can download this. Insurance companies speak out. School districts, boards, medical health officers now know Lloyd's of London will not provide liability coverage for injuries, directly or indirectly arising out of, resulting from, or contributed to by electromagnetic fields, electromagnetic radiation, radio waves, or noise. This applies to Wi-Fi and all wireless devices in schools. And Lloyd's insure and advise the other insurance companies. So what I'm saying to your schools is you will not be insured. And I know quite a lot of class actions now around the world where parents, they have had sick children, injured children, dead children from Wi-Fi, children who have become ill, had to leave school and have lost their educational studies and have had to retrain somewhere else, which means they miss university. But there are now class actions against named decision makers, and that is legal. They are taking class actions against the decision makers because the decision makers did not consult or take full advantage of all of the information that was available. They stuck to the 6-minute heating effect and said, that's it, that's all we need, and they've gone. And can I put a little rider in here? I represented a girl in court, an 11-year-old girl in court, and I was defending the girl against harm from Wi-Fi. I was questioned by a very ambitious, tenacious barrister all day, and I was able to stand my ground because there is so much science and information and independently conducted research that no matter what the barrister threw at me, I could say there is research to prove this, research to prove that, and it went on. And I have a history of knowing what I'm talking about. And since that court case, and I've done a few, I thought, supposing the tables were turned, supposing I were a school governor or a principal or a decision maker, and I signed to have Wi-Fi in the school, and a girl was made sick or died. And I have known 3, 4, 5 deaths. And the kid had died. And I was taken to court. I was up against an aggressive, tenacious barrister representing the parents. And I thought, how long would I last in the dock? Had I signed to have Wi-Fi, how long would I last in the dock, knowing the research that has been known since 1949 and published? And I thought, about 3 minutes. A barrister would have me tied up in knots in 3 minutes, and it would be very simple. I would say I'm following the ICNIRP guidelines or whatever, and the barrister would say, well, that's for 6 minutes and it's thermal. What about the rest of the time? What did you do to protect the girl from the rest of the time? And that's it. You have nothing. And the barrister would say, well, 6 minutes heating, and you signed for a lifetime. What about her children, her health, neurological? And there are thousands of papers. In fact, I have got a document here that lists 26,000 papers showing harm to children. And that's just one. 26,000 papers. A barrister would have me speechless, and I wouldn't be able to progress after 3 minutes at most.
It's incredible, Barry, because when you go to the schools and ask these questions, you give them information. It's just a simple case of they are not well informed about the technology. They pass the buck to the council passes the buck to the Welsh Government passed the buck to the Public Health England,
Yep.
which all relates back to these ICNIRP guidelines, which are just thermal heating guidelines that are not appropriate for biological health.
This is where they hope to get away with it. I've had many councils since 5G. I've had many councils come here to talk to me, and they usually bring a barrister with them, sitting where you are. And I don't know the law, and I'm not trained in law, but from what I've heard, you do not have immunity as a councillor to kill people. You okay there?
Yeah.
You do not have immunity under the laws to kill people. As a decision maker, when a child goes to school, and I've been a teacher, when a child goes to school, you are in loco parentis. In other words, you cannot harm that child or do anything to that child that the parents would not do or would not allow you to do. You take on the responsibility of that parent to protect the health of the child. There are loads of laws. I read out 5 in my Exeter talk. I don't know if you've heard it. I read out 5. I can read them out here. There are 5 laws that adhere to children in schools that are being or can be broken because you have not done your job properly. And if I was in the dock as a signatory, my only defence would be ignorance. That is my only defence. Ignorance. I did not take the time to study properly. And what you must do is put the schools on legal notice. And there are school websites, there are doctors who have websites where you can get all of the information, and you put the school on legal notice. If you harm my child, I am taking you to court because you are responsible. And under the health and safety Number 588 became law 1st of July 2016. The person in charge, if a child goes to the person in charge, the health and safety regulation, if the person in charge is informed by a teacher or anyone working in the school or a child, the Wi-Fi is making them ill, they are bound by law to protect that child, bound by law. And that is for non-ionizing as well. And I've got it. I've got a copy of it. It's number 588, health and safety, electromagnetism at work. And you do not have exemption. Children, there are a couple of laws, and if you want, I'll read them out on camera. There are several laws that apply to just children. United Nations laws, European laws, which were in action when the decisions were made. Civil laws that protect children. There are lots of laws, and I've got them here.
I'll take a picture, Barry, and I'll add it to the video after, if you don't mind.
Yeah, do you want me to read them out?
Yeah, if you don't mind, only just
Okay.
I think we're saving your voice.
No, that's all right. I'll read them out. Let me just get to it. I'll be there in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Here we are. Right. Okay, I'll read these out. Right, now, I'm not trained in law. This is, and there are several countries that have actually had legal cases. We've had one here in this country. We have had a legal case where a teacher was given full compensation, full retirement because of Wi-Fi in class. Right. You have, and I'll just read these out. The UN Convention 1989. Each state has a legal responsibility to protect children to ensure maximum development. Articles 19 and 6. Wales are guilty of that. They are not protecting children. The Children's Act 1989, Part 3, Section 17. There is a legal obligation on local authorities to protect children against harm or the risk of. This stands apart as a likelihood or perceived risk is all that is necessary. It does not need proof. Children's Act 1989. So you do not, all you have to do is have a perceived risk. You think there could be a risk and you can get it stopped. The Nuremberg Code 1950, Article 7 prohibits any experiment without consent. In other words, anybody can say this is an experiment. 5G, 4G, airwave, they're all experiments. This is an experiment. I do not want my child being experimented upon. You have a legal right to have it stopped. It came after the Second World War when humans were being experimented on. And there is only one exception, Article 5. A doctor may experiment on his or herself, and to my knowledge that has only been tried once. But it violates, Wi-Fi in school violates the Nuremberg Code. They all do. Under EU law, a strategic environmental assessment must be carried out before whatever it is put in. In other words, under EU law, you have a classroom full of children, a strategic environmental assessment must be done on the environment the children are going to be in, with multiple waves, constructive interference, and it also says, for your decision makers, the polluter pays the principal. In other words, the person in the school can't blame the council. The person in the school is responsible, and the person who, the signatory, as I interpret this, the polluter pays the principal, the person responsible pays the price. And if a child is made sick and needs educating at home, then you sue the decision maker for the cost of home education. If the child is sick and needs special treatment, you sue that person, and it comes out of their house, their car, their bank account, and you can do that. That is what barristers have said here. Right, next one. A legitimate government must preserve the right to light, liberty, health of its citizens. That is under the Treaties of Civil Government, the second treatise, chapter 2, and the last one, which I've just mentioned, Health and Safety, number 588. Law became law 1st of July 2016. Employers, that will be the school's employer, must protect those of higher susceptibility, which is all the children, monitor health for electromagnetic radiation, both thermal and non-thermal. For example, looking at harm, auditory or sensory disturbance, any neurological damage, change in brain function, which can affect any part of the body. So you have all those laws to protect your children that you can use.
And just as you've just mentioned, Barry, teachers are also at risk as well from the exposure from the reproductive organs to their neurological health as well.
Oh yeah, I've taught, especially in sixth form, I've taught girls that were pregnant. I've worked with pregnant teachers, and we have a UK decision here where a teacher, because teachers are in the classroom all the time, a teacher got full compensation, early retirement, full pension, sick benefits from being made sick from Wi-Fi in class.
How would you feel if your child was in a typical public school classroom in this day and age, Barry?
I wouldn't have Wi-Fi in the class. If my children were at school now, knowing how it would affect their immune system, their organ, their brain structure, the chances of their reproductive abilities, I wouldn't have Wi-Fi in the house. I certainly wouldn't have it in the school.
You just wouldn't take the risk at all?
No, and let me tell you why. And can I just say, Dan, that is a really, really brilliant question. And let me explain why. And there's a recent example of this. Let me come to this. Now, Wi-Fi is a class 2B carcinogen, okay? Now, Class 2B carcinogen, and I've got the list here of Class 2B carcinogens, and there is a very familiar argument that you get back from council.
Yeah.
A very familiar argument, and they are wrong. And by allowing this, and I use an old-fashioned word, to me, when you cause the death of a child or the death of a stillborn or a miscarriage, to me that's murder. And I wish that people would be charged with murder. Now, Wi-Fi is in the same category, okay, of mercury, lead, DDT, benzene, exhaust fumes, HIV type 2, chloroform. And then somebody very clever says, aha, but so is coffee, and so is
Pickles or something.
so is coffee, and so is processed meat. But we have those. Yes, we do have coffee, and we do have processed meat. But the coffee, if you ever read the paper, the coffee refers to the compounds produced in the sort of Mediterranean coffee that you drink, that is sort of thick, and you have it for around 20, 30 years. It doesn't apply to your morning cup of Nescafe. And let's take the silliest one, processed meat. When you process it, you have compounds formed, and they have been linked to a risk of cancer, and they're in the Class 2B category, okay? Let me give the silliest one as an example. Your council and your teacher, they would not allow mercury in the classroom. I was in schools when we had mercury thermometers and they were banned. You would not allow benzene, you would not allow DDT, any of those in the classroom. Let's take the processed meat. Supposing your council or your school governor, chair of governors, said, right, I am going to make a rule. Every single child will have the compounds of processed meat in every school dinner every day. I'm going to make sure that the compounds from processed meat are in, this is your council, I'm going to make sure that every pregnant mother in Wales has the compounds from processed meat in school milk, in breast milk, in milk that you buy. It's going to be in all baby food. Every single female who is pregnant and every child is going to have processed meat every day, just to make sure that the compounds are in the body 24 hours a day. No child, no pregnant woman, no fetus, no uterus will be free from the compounds of what you would get from processed meat. Everybody in Wales will have it in their digest system every single day to ensure that it is somewhere in there working its way through every day. What would happen in school?
They would be shut down in a week, probably, Barry, I'm guessing.
They would be shut down in a week. There would be rioting in the council. Look at what we had with fluorine in water.
Yeah.
Now, if your council said everybody will have the compounds of processed meat in their digestive system, every pregnant woman, everybody, every school child will have it. We're going to make sure they have it every day. When I was at school, at the end of the war, it was compulsory for children to have a little bottle of milk and a spoon of malt. Now, if your council said, we are going to follow that example. Every child will have the compounds from processed meat every day, and we are going to make sure they eat it. The parents would be in uproar. But you're giving them microwaves, and it's the same level.
And it's involuntary, so not, the parents either aren't aware that they're being microwaved.
No.
Or they've never been given the choice
So
to say, would you like your child in a microwave classroom?
You wouldn't force any of those onto children all day, but you will allow microwaves. And the other thing that is particularly damaging are the developing breasts of the girls, the mammary cells. There are around 50 papers now, and it's immensely complex, the biochemistry, but there are around 50 papers on why the breasts are particularly sensitive to microwave irradiation, and why breast cancer is one of the most prominent cancers when you live near cell towers or you have Wi-Fi in the house. 50 papers on it. Now, I don't know how many children, but you are, without a shadow of a doubt, you are exposing the schoolgirls to early breast cancer. And in fact, a lot of people don't realise it. If you have a teacher that is pregnant, microwaves can induce pregnancy, and the teacher may not even know at this time. You can have, the microwaves can induce pregnancy on the 15th day of pregnancy. 15th day. Through epigenetics, microwaves can develop cancer, Turner cell cancerous, in the baby on the 15th day, which will manifest itself after the baby is born and will develop cancer. 15th day. Now, if you think, and I've taught pregnant girls, worked with pregnant teachers, a woman generally doesn't appreciate or take precautions against being pregnant or protecting the embryo or fetus from Wi-Fi for between 6 and 8 weeks. It's usually 6 weeks. After 4 weeks, they think, during the cycle, they think, hang on, I've got to be pregnant. In 6 weeks, they're sitting in front of a GP, or I've got an appointment for a GP. By 8 weeks, they know they're pregnant.
Yeah.
But in that time, virtually all of the fetus has developed. They have their finger buds, toe buds, the brain is developing, the organs are in place. Within 100 days, all of the ovarian follicles are there. And it is an immensely dangerous time to microwave a woman, but they don't even take precautions.
They're just completely unaware, Barrie.
So, and they could be sitting with Wi-Fi on their lap, and you've got all of these, the 3 most dangerous frequencies going through. And it's worth noting why you don't get this on the news, because I mean, the Wi-Fi isn't new. It's been known since the 40s, 50s. In 1999...
Oh, sorry, Barrie. 2 seconds.